Welcome back to the channel. It's Thursday. It's time to look at some recent sales on eBay for the vintage collection. And I don't know how big of an uproar it has been for you TVC collectors, but I did see a Facebook post that Hasbro is going to be increasing their prices soon. And I'm curious if you all could leave some comments as you're leaving a like. What you think about that. To me, I think I read that it's about a $5 increase to $20 each here in the US, and obviously that'll flow through in whatever your currency of choice is. But that to me, I mean, this is just me on the outside looking in. I don't really collect the vintage collection anymore, but on the outside looking in, $20 feels like a lot for a dinky little 3 3/4 inch action figure that a lot of repaints, and I'm not saying they're all terrible. There are some really nice examples out there, but between the deluxe editions with the wider card backs that go for a lot more, or a little bit more, but the standard 3 3/4 inch figures are now $20 plus taxes. I mean, that would be like for me here in Tennessee, where the state sales tax is 9 3/4%. I mean, you're talking $22 for a single action figure. That to me just feels like pushing the envelope. And I know maybe some of it's driven by labor costs or even material costs, but certainly tariffs could be playing a factor there. But I would just love to know what you hardcore collectors that are diehards that have to get them all, what you think about that, and is it going to affect whether you just buy only certain figures that you really like, or have you given up on trying to complete them all? I'm just, to me, it's a big number, a big increase. So, but that's enough of that. I just wanted to at least bring it up since I do remember seeing a post about that on Facebook. But here are some recent sales for the vintage collection. And by the way, Amazon's cloud service is down, and so my thumbnails and all the animations that I usually do, I can't do them right now. There's just a mess right now because Amazon's cloud services have been crashing for the last couple of days. But anyway, we've got a VC09 Boba Fett, the original issue, unpunched, very nice looking example there. That one sold for $120, and I know that that's not particularly difficult to find unpunched, but I do feel like I see more of them punched versus unpunched. This was a very clean example. It looked basically case fresh to me. Very clean. So 120 on that VC09 ESB Boba Fett. We had a Lumat. This one had some dings at the top of the card, but another one that's holding its value pretty well. It has come down maybe a little bit. It got up to like 150, maybe even 175 not too long ago, but even today, they're still selling for about 126, 125 was a sales price on this one, 125.99. And then, as always, we always talk about Power Droid when he has some sales. He had two different Return of the Jedi R2-D2s from the Jabba's sail barge with the drink tray. He had two of those. Both of those did sell for $70. That was always one of my favorite TVC figures. I had one of these loose at one point, and I just in hand, I just thought it was one of those really well sculpted figures with that really cool drink tray. So that one, two of those did sell. He had the special action figure droid set. This is obviously a recreation of the vintage Kenner one. We just saw a vintage Kenner example sell in the last Hakes auction that sold for a big number. But this is the multi-language version. And that's another question I've got for you guys is, how common are these here in the US? I feel like you don't see them very often. I would imagine that these multi-language were used up in Canada, maybe down in South America and in the UK and in Europe. But here in the US, we just don't see them for sale by US sellers very often. But I don't think it really matters in terms of price. You don't really see a big price difference, but it is pretty striking when you see all the multi-language on it versus the US version. It really does kind of get that that foreign vintage feel, that harbor Italian feel. But I like the way it looked, and that one did sell for $70. He had a Darth Vader Emperor's Wrath VC 115. That one sold for $120. We've seen this one sell routinely kind of in that 100 to 110 range unpunched, but Power Droid is Power Droid. He's his own entity at this point. He gets those really case-fresh examples, so he does tend to get about a 10% premium. I feel like his prices are very fair. I mean, I don't know him personally or anything like that, but I feel like their prices are very fair for what you're getting, and everyone I've talked to that's bought from Power Droid has always been really happy and noted that it's a very clean example unless he posts additional photos of it, inside the star case. But next up, we had another unpunched sale price data point for you guys, looking for the Revenge of the Jedi retail release for VC64 Slave Leia. Obviously, this one has the prototype Boba Fett offer and the paperwork inside the blister, so it's the retail release. But this was an unpunched example and sold for $290. Last week's episode, we documented one that Power Droid sold for $300. So that at least gives you a rough idea of the price range right now. And that looked pretty clean from the one or two photos that he included. But $290 on that one. Darth Revan, this one was a collector grade from Big Bad Toy Store, because it's got the box and it's got the collector grade sticker and it's got the baggie that goes all the way around it. So this one did sell for $100, which that's a little bit more than where it's going. For a while there, this was very, very pricey. It was over $100, and more consistently, you're seeing them sell in that kind of $70, $80 range. But if you see the collector grade, me personally, I'd be willing to spend an extra $5 or $10, knowing that I'm getting a collector grade version. But for the big ones like this, like Darth Revan, so that one did sell for $100. Another Loot Crate data point. I can't tell that's a tear. Yeah, it looks like it's a tear on the top of the card there. That's still sold for $80, and this seller did have two available, but you can see on the top of the card there, it's got some damage to it. So probably not a number I would pay for a damaged Loot Crate VC 146, but that is what somebody was willing to pay for it. So it did sell at $80. Sellers got one more available. Got two different data points for Antok Merrick, the pack-in with the Target exclusive Rogue One X-Wing fighter. The X-Wing by itself usually goes for about $100, $115, and then Antok Merrick by himself can vary in price, but this one sold for $100, and then literally an hour later, another one sold that was listed for $100, and this one actually sold for $75, and that one included a star case. So don't be afraid to make an offer. That one, they offered $75, which is 25% below the asking price, and they took it. So $75 to $100 is about the going rate for VC 204 Antok Merrick. Some other vehicles that sold here recently, South Beach Toys. They watched the channel and they sold a TVC Rebel Armored Snowspeeder factory sealed with the pink background. Very, very cool box art on that one. That one sold for $165. We had the Y-Wing fighter, just some light edge wear to this one, but this was factory sealed for $265. Really clean boxes. I've seen these go as high as $300, but this one did have some light scuffing to it, so that kept the price down just a little bit. And then the Millennium Falcon sold. I think this is a buddy of mine. It looks like him in the picture. I'm not going to say who it is, but I think it's a buddy of mine. He had this beautiful example of the Millennium Falcon, and this one looks like it was safely tucked away with some packages, like an acrylic case of some sort. But this one did have some dings to it, and so he kind of sold it for what I thought was a fair price given the dings. It sold for $609. It wasn't perfect. It's the Toys R Us original issue Falcon, but really clean examples. We see these routinely go into the $750 range. So I thought that was a fair price at $609. Free shipping on that one as well. So very fair price. Next up, I got two different data points. This is how crazy it is on eBay with some of these desirable items. And the ESB AT-AT, while not rare, it does come up enough on eBay. But it's crazy what some people just, I guess they don't care. They just want to buy it. But this one obviously sold in an auction, so we know it's a pretty fair price. And that's one of the lower prices we've seen lately. $576 plus $25 shipping. So let's call it $600 for the ESP. Now, I did double check the next one. I double checked this one on 130point.com, and it is showing that it did in fact sell for that price of $930, which that's one of the bigger price points we've seen recently. Maybe during COVID it got to that price point. I don't remember. I honestly can't remember what types of price points we were seeing back then, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was at $1,000 or more during COVID. But this one did sell for $930, and literally it was like a day or two before this one sold at $576. So $576 versus $930. It's just wild how that happens. And I don't think it was a particularly pristine example. I mean, it looked really nice, don't get me wrong, but just crazy that it sold for that much more. So $930. I've got two graded examples. They were UKG graded examples that sold before we wrap things up. So this was CHE 33P or cheap. I don't know where this character is from. Maybe they'll tell me here. Oh, Clone Captain Rex's droid for his vessel. So I got to be honest with you, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I don't keep up with this stuff. I can't keep all the droids straight. But this one was VC 323 and sold in an auction. It was a UKG uncirculated 90 grade, and that sold for 57 pounds, which is $76. That's a pretty good deal there. And then the same seller also had the original issue VC 100 Vader's Apprentice, and this was offerless. It didn't have anything in the paperwork. It didn't have the Darth Maul offer. But the offerless version doesn't come up that regularly. It's usually the Darth Maul, cutout for the sticker on the front. So I just caught my eye because it was, offerless. So that one was a UKG 85% and sold for $81.89, which is about $110 US. So pretty good deal, I think, for both of those. That is all I've got for this edition of the Vintage Collection Market Update. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.